Hello everybody, welcome back to Leeton. My name's Jace and this channel is all about our journey to become more self-sufficient in veg, fruit, eggs and maybe some honey. And the sun's out, the snow has gone, it isn't raining and there isn't a tornado ripping through the garden. God, we've waited days for this sort of weather. It's, well, not days, weeks really. All last week was really cold, snow, and it's just been wet and windy and just been horrible. So, but we can now get outside for a day. Word of caution though, whatever you're going to do, it's going to get very cold again tonight. When I say very cold, in my area in Shropshire, it's going to get down to about -1, and then according to the forecast at least, it's warming up again for the foreseeable future, up to sort of 9, 10, 11 degrees. Now the ground is just way too wet really to do anything on the actual soil within the polytunnel area and the beds. The raised beds I can probably get a bit done over the next few days. But today's video is about potatoes in pots, and it's that time of year. I need to get my first earlies in, and we're going to be growing Charlotte because we find them really easy to grow and we like the taste, and they store reasonably well for a while in the containers themselves or in the fridge. So that's what we're going to do. But I'm going to be doing a little bit of an experiment this year, comparing different kinds of compost and different kinds of feeds, and a different method of growing as well. Or not method of growing, but a method of trying to encourage the potatoes to come up. And I want to test these theories because lots of people think different things and have different methods, and believe certain doing things a certain way increases the yield, and I want to test those theories. So that's the plan. Right, I need to get some pots, I need to get some labels, I need to get my seed potatoes that have been shitting, and I need to get some compost. So I'll get set up and I shall see you in a second. Okay, so because I'm doing an experiment, I want to make sure that it's a fair experiment. So I need all the pots that I'm going to use to be exactly the same size. And for that, the only pots I've got in the right number are these, which I think I bought in Home Base for about £4 each. They're a 40-litre bucket. A trug, I think we call them here in the UK, and the only thing is they don't have any drainage holes in, so that's the next job, to put some drainage holes in. And you want plenty of drainage for potatoes. If they're sat in damp, wet compost, not damp but wet, and they're not draining properly, there's a chance they're going to rot. So good drainage is important. I'm going to use a 10mm drill bit, and I'm going to put a ring of holes there, a ring of holes there, maybe one in the middle, so it's got plenty of opportunity for the water to drain out. So for my experiment, I need 8 pots, 8 containers, and I want to just have some decent labels so that they're not gonna blow away, fall off, the paint, the ink's gonna rub off them or anything like that. I want some decent sized containers so that I can see what's going on, or what pot's what, as the potatoes grow, because potatoes will grow. They're gonna probably cover the labels if they're small, etc. So I've got a piece of old bath panel here, which I've saved and just chucked down the bottom of the garden. And I'm gonna get some tin snips, and I'm just gonna cut myself some decent sized labels so that I can write on them what is in each pot, and I won't have any confusion later. So I cut myself a piece of plastic about that size. I can always put a little bit of a point on it, I suppose, so it looks a little bit more like a plant label. Wipe the dirt off it, dry it off, and I can use a permanent marker to write on it. So I need to make 8 of these. So what I want to experiment with is different types of feed, fertilizer, natural organic fertilizer, 2 different types of compost, one which is my own homemade compost, and one which is a shop bought Irish moss peat compost. And I want to experiment with the theory that if you take the flowers off the potatoes, that it sends more energy into growing tubers, potatoes. Now, the jury's out. Some people think that it does make a difference. Some people say that it doesn't make any difference. The potato itself, the plant, doesn't need to flower to produce potatoes. It flowers to become pollinated and to produce seed. And if you've ever left a potato plant to the point where it's flowered and grown the little green balls, the little green seed pods, that's what that is. But the plant doesn't need that doesn't need the flowers to grow potatoes under the ground. So they're the experiments I'm going to run. My homemade compost, shop bought compost with fish blood and bone, and shop bought compost with a potato feed, and then all of those times 2, so that we can have one with flowers and one without flowers, where we take the flowers off to see if that actually makes the potatoes bigger, because the plant is sending energy into the tubers rather than to grow flowers. We're going to find out. So what we need to do now is get the pots filled and some potatoes planted and some feed mixed into those that need it. Okay, so we're going to be growing Charlotte potatoes, and these have been chitting for a few weeks in a cool, light place. And what we're going to do is we're going to put 4 in a bucket, because early potatoes only grow on one level, whereas your main crop potatoes will grow shoots off the main stem and grow potatoes as the stem grows, which is why you mound those potatoes up to keep the tubers covered. But with early potatoes you don't need to do that. So all I want really is 2 or 3 chits on each potato, because if you've got lots and lots of chits and lots of shoots, then the potato's going to try and grow lots of tubers off each shoot, and that's going to result in smaller potatoes. Whereas I want that sort of size new potato would be perfect for me, like salad potatoes. So let me find one. So if we look at this one, we've got a chit there, chit there, chit there, chit there, one there. So I'm going to go for these 3 on the top. and I'm going to just rub that one off and rub that one off and leave those 3. So what I'm going to do is plant this one near this handle, a few inches in from the side of the bucket, and then this one, rub that one off, leave these. I'm going to plant that one there. So the 2 that I've planted at the moment are in line with these buckets, a few inches in from the edge of the pot. So what I'm going to do now is about half fill this bucket with compost. Okay, and then I'm just going to get 2 more potatoes, so we'll go with that one. I'm going to put this one here, so a few inches in from the edge of the bucket, but this time sort of 90 degrees to the handle, so across that way. So we've gone east-west with the ones that are lower, and north-south with the ones that are on the next level. That's that. And all we do now is top the bucket off. I'll finish the bucket about here, leave a little bit of a gap. I don't want to fill it right to the top, and the reason for that is when I water them, there's somewhere for the water to sit and run down rather than just run off the compost. And that is all there is to it. So this pot got no extra feed in it, it's just my homemade compost, and what I'm going to do is label this one up where we're going to let the flowers grow on this one. So homemade compost, no feed, and we're going to just let the potato do its thing. The only thing I'm going to give this pot is water. That is it. And we'll see how many pounds of potatoes we get out of it. So there we go, label homemade, no feed, with flour. So now I want to do exactly the same thing, exactly what you've just watched. The only difference is this one I will be pinching the flowers out as they form. So I'm not going to film it all for you. I'm just going to do exactly the same as what I did there, but the label on this one will be telling me to pinch the flowers out when they come. Alright guys, so both homemade compost, 4 seed potatoes in each, no feed, one's going to be left to grow with flowers, one I'm going to take the flowers off. That's those 2. Next we're going to use some shop bought compost, Irish moss peat. These were £4.75 each, for 60 litres from a farm shop that we go to. So exactly the same process. We're gonna four or 5 inches in the bottom. Looks like nice stuff. 4 or 5 inches in the bottom. A couple of potatoes in line with the handles, like that. Then another 4 inches. And then two potatoes across the handles. And so that's going to be shop bought compost, no feed and no flour. I'm going to take the flowers off the ones in this pot. So this row here is going to be no flour, and then this row is going to be with flour. Okay, so we've got there 4 pots, 2 homemade compost, 2 shop bought compost. None of those pots have got any fertilizer or feed in. We're going to just rely on the potatoes using the nutrients that are in the compost itself. So next, we're going to do 2 pots with some potato feed mixed in. So I'm going to just add a good handful, sprinkle it around in there, mix it in a bit, and put my first 2 potatoes in line with the handles as normal. Bit too much in there, but what I'll do is I'll just push the potatoes down a bit further. So next layer of compost, another good handful, mix it in a bit, and then 2 more potatoes across the handles, and then top that off with some compost. and another handful. Just mix it in a little bit. Now this potato fertilizer will break down slowly and feed the plants over quite a while, over you know, 6-8 weeks, something like that. So that's that. So I'm going to do exactly the same now with another pot, same compost, same feed. One of these pots will be with flour, one of these pots will be without flour. Okay, now the last two pots, exactly the same process, about 4 inches in the bottom, but this time we're going to put in a good handful of fish blood and bone. We're going to just mix that in. Then we're going to get a potato in each one. Take a couple of those chits off. Then about half fill the buckets. And then another good handful, fish blood and bone. Just mix that in. And 2 more potatoes. And this time we're going across that. Like that. Then we're going to top the buckets off. Okay guys, so homemade compost, no feed. Shop bought compost, no feed in them two. Shop bought compost with potato feed in these two. Shop bought compost with fish blood and bone in these two. This row will be allowed to grow with flowers. I'm not going to do anything other than water them. And this row I will pick the flowers off as they come, and we will see if the theory is correct that by picking the flowers off it sends more energy to the tubers. Then this row should yield more potatoes in weight than this row. But what we're also doing is we're testing my compost against shop bought compost, and we're testing potato feed against fish blood and bone. So we've got about 3 or 4 different experiments going on here, all in one. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, it is going to get down to about -1 tonight and then it's going to warm up. Now, although the potatoes will probably be perfectly fine in this compost, because this compost is not freezing at all, just for one night I am going to cover them. Now, we've just had a bed delivered and the mattress was wrapped in a big piece of polythene, so I'm going to set that up over here and probably leave it on for a few days, and if we've got a bit of sun, that's going to warm it up. It's going to keep the moisture in there, it's going to hold a bit of heat and just protect the tubers, these seed potatoes, from the frost. So there we go, guys. They should be fine like that. Just going to leave them like that now. Probably check them again in a week, 10 days. They're not going to need watering. The compost is pretty damp anyway, and this polythene will help to keep some of that moisture in. It's going to protect them from the frost a bit. And I think now we are probably going to start warming up. Famous last words, we'll probably get -10 next week. Now I've said that. If we do, then I will move these indoors, and that's why I sow my first earlies in pots, so that I can move them if I have to. First potato sown. Alright guys, well, thanks very much for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, please hit the like button, and if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, then please do. Follow us on our journey to become more self-sufficient, and you might pick up some tips, and you might be able to teach me some tips as well, because that's what it's all about. It's about sharing information and learning as we go. And this sort of experiment is exactly why I'm doing that, because if our aim is to become more self-sufficient, then knowing which feed is best, or which method is best, or is taking the flowers off worth it, or is it just a complete waste of time? And that's what it's about. It's about learning and about experimenting. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.